do you do that now? Like, why do you do that now for every episode?
Episode!
No, you have. You've been doing it for the past few ones.
I don't know. I have to be exciting because we can't actually hear the intro music, and it's all like, like noise, and so if we just immediately cut from all that noise to, this is Lesbian Talk, episode 100. I
never
it's
sound
words.
I never sound like that.
Sorry, no, you sound like this. Say words, y'all.
What? No.
Water.
I do say y'all though. I don't know why. I'm not from the South at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's episode 102. See, now I can't say the episode without feeling like a dork. It's episode 100 and some. I'm pretty sure it's 102.
Y'all. Yeah, this time.
So, how have you been, audience? How's your week been? Have you been good?
Have you been German?
Probably.
At least some of them are.
Germans who listen up in German.
Yeah. Good work, guys.
Good
Everyone else, if you've not been German, just keep at it. Eventually you will be. Probably.
You just say these things sometimes. It just, like, happen.
I don't know.
Oh, I'm going to share a very important thought that I had the other day that I meant to tweet, but I don't know how to tweet this 140 characters. So, I was thinking, the other day, like, the nuclear launch codes for America? They change pretty regularly. I'm sure fairly frequently due to, like, national security and stuff like that. So, thinking of, like, all the different nuclear launch codes that we've had since, we invented, nuclear launch codes, I realized that at some point, it has to be the way that at some point in time, for a week or a day or 3 hours or something like that, that the nuclear launch codes were the Konami code. It's got to have happened.
Technically not true.
It's got to have happened.
Because we don't know if the codes use numbers or letters, or if they use a mixture of both, or if they have a thing set up. Okay.
But there's got to be.
We don't know if they use directional button arrows, and there's a lot of randomization. I assume you got like 10 things. You've got like millions of possibilities.
Yeah, but at some point there was some analyst who was like, I wonder if they'll go for this.
I got the feeling it's probably randomized.
Well, see, I used to LARP with a guy who, he worked for the government. When I lived down in DC, a lot of the people that I LARP with work with the government. And apparently, once the ST had to call him about something, but apparently had a different number than his cell phone, because he called the guy, and then he heard, "Thank you for calling Missile Control, this is so-and-so." He's like, "Friend?" And friend was like, "ST?" And ST was like, I thought this was a good contact number for you. No, it's not. I'll talk to you after work. And he was like, oh no, oh my god, federal watch list now.
How did he find that number?
I don't know. And neither of them know, because it was probably at some point in time he wrote that number down, maybe thinking, like, mistaking it for his cell phone number, or he's used to giving out his work number. But yeah, I knew a guy who worked in missile control.
Anyway.
So, and just knowing that fact means that it's so much more likely that at some point the nuclear launch codes were the Konami code.
Anyway, before we begin, a little update. By the time you hear this, hopefully, AlCon will be happening very shortly. AlCon being...
On Thursday.
Yeah, we're going there in like 5 days. So if you hear this immediately after it goes up, then, AlCon's coming.
AlCon is in Leicester.
Yes,
Leicester,
in England. And if you're American, you don't actually write it L-E-S-T-E-R. You write it Leicester.
Leicester. And the first time I had to pronounce it, you laughed at me.
Yeah.
You guys over here with your words. Like, we watched a documentary last night about this castle in Wales.
Carnarvon.
And the way that you actually spell Carnarvon in letters in Welsh, it just got nothing to do with its actual sound. And I was like, what?
Okay,
car. Have several Y's and a D and a
car in Carnarvon is in C-A-E-R. Okay, that's a little bit weird. And then the Carnarvon, the V is actually spelled F, and that's it. The rest of it's fairly sensible.
Don't approve.
That's when it comes
and
to.
And then there was some kind of town name that was like friggin' schninn, and that was like you couldn't.
I already pronounced it correctly.
You did, and I was like, what? Are you
just based on my limited knowledge of Welsh?
What the fuck are you? I actually had to say, what the fuck? Like your man from Hydraulic Press,
Well,
child.
just saying, Carnarvon, when it comes to Welsh names, is, that is beginner tutorial level weirdness. Okay? Well,
If you're Welsh, write the show.
Some parts of Wales have much harder names.
Probably.
But,
I mean, I know, and then I was like, I know some Welsh words. And she was like, "Oh, you mean the little Welsh Welsh named towns in Pennsylvania where you lived?" I was like, "Shut up, I'm awesome."
It's true though.
Yeah, I can know how to spell Bala Kinwood, cause it's two words, Bala, and Kinwood is not Kinwood. No, it's Cynwyd. And believe me, spelling that on the phone to people, giving them our business address, they were like, "What?" I'm like, "It's Welsh. OI." It's Bala Kinwood. There's Bryn Mawr, which is also two words, is BRYNMAWR, like Bryn Mawr College, because that's where Bryn Mawr College is.
You have to find an actual Welsh person to tell you if you guys are pronouncing it right.
I'll tweet at Welshie. Maybe he'll answer. I don't know. Think I've met him in person 2 times.
But you.
Oh, we had him on Lesbian Talk. Him and Nash.
But you guys, round where Omega comes from, there's always little places named after places in random parts of the UK. So it is a little bit like going through the fastest tour of the UK ever.
My high school was Strathaven, which was actually Thomas Leeper was one of the first merchants in the Delaware Valley, and he had quite a lot of money. The Thomas Leeper house is still there, and you can take tours of it. You can also rent it out for occasions. And so he owned a lot of the of what is now Delaware County, and so went around naming things. And Strathaven used to be a tract of land. I think is now, I think it's part of Springfield Township now, but it was named after the wee little town of Strathaven, where his wife came from in Scotland. Go Panthers! It's your Strathaven Panther marching band. I was in the band for 4 years.
Yes,
But anyway,
but AlCon.
We're going to AlCon.
We went there last year. That's where we filmed the Merlin the Return crossover.
Spent 5 minutes throwing pillows at Film Brain.
Yes, there's no pillows this year. Basically, AlCon is the same sort of deal as Con Bravo and MagFest and BroCon, as in video games and anime. It's got good people there. It was a lot of fun last year. Brental Floss is going. Masco X is going. Andrew Campbell from Gorehounds on YouTube is going. There's a couple of voice actors. One was first name Linda, who I've forgotten the surname up, begins with C, and I've been talking to her.
You've been mailing with.
Been talking to on email. I forget her name. God damn it!
We're gonna be really embarrassed if she's like super famous. We're like, hey, we're Diamanda and Omega. How are you? So you're gonna be on our Cards Against Humanity panel, right? Okay, it's gonna be really cool.
Yeah.
So,
Plus, if you like historical stuff, Leicester, you've got Richard III. You've got a lovely museum dedicated to him, which is all fascinating. They've got a real severe hard-on for him because Leicester has very little else going for it, frankly, except for occasionally doing well in football, like it did last year.
We have decided that, last night, that Richard III has won the War of the Roses because he has a whole entire museum, and he has this huge, marble sarcophagus in the church.
To himself.
In Leicester, all to himself. Where's Henry? Oh, wait, where's Henry?
He's in several boxes.
In Westminster Abbey with everybody else. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, Henry. Was that your skull or your rib bone? Because you're mixed in with all the other monarchs.
Yeah, because all the monarchs who were buried there
in a pile
before the English Civil War. Basically, Cromwell and his men went in there and they destroyed they dug up all the bodies and they sort of threw the body parts apart. And then later on, I don't know if Cromwell was actually in favour of it, but at some point after that.
And imagine Oliver Cromwell is being played by
Jeffrey
Rush.
Rush.
They're like, it was me, Oliver Cromwell. It was me the entire time.
So they collected all the kings and queens of England's skeletons. Henry VIII. Richard William the Conqueror.
They have to have played football with the skulls for a wee bit before Cromwell. Like, would you stop that?
Entirely possible. But they picked them all up and they just threw them into these boxes, and the boxes are put up there where the coffins were, and they're labelled with names, but they're just the body parts are in there randomly, so they have no idea who's what.
And then Richard's like, oh, people come to my museum and my church just to see me personally. Are they coming just to Westminster Abbey to see you, Henry? No, they're seeing everybody else at Westminster. Ha, 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 ha.
Yeah, they'll teach you for having me as under a car park.
Yep, and then later we saw a BBC article from July that they got his skeleton out, and they then put it in a week off, and they took him to, the actual battlefield
Bosworth Field.
in a wee parade, then took him back, and he's like, "Who gets a parade? Richard III."
Here's my final battle sequence. Yeah, going amateurist again.
So we've decided that he won the War of the Roses in the end.
But yeah, AlCon is good fun. Leicester has this really nifty secondhand toy shop where last year they had like selection of small Transformers for £5, and I was like, holy shit! Among these small Transformers is a giant metal fucking GoBot of Psykill. Yeah, from the early 80s. And so I was like, I will buy this, and I will choose 2 other ones just randomly because I want this Psykill.
I got 3 little Micro Machines. Oh, I used to have so many Micro Machines, my mom threw them out. Micro Machines were the shit, yo.
And we're filming 2 crossovers at AlCon unless things go really badly. Another one with Film Brain. The film is Berserker Hell's Warrior.
Oh, it's so bad.
Same director as Merlin the Return, and a lot of similarities, shall we say. And the other one is Necromentia, which
is actually pretty decent, quite honestly.
Yeah, the last third isn't
compared
as good.
Compared to the kind of movies that you make me watch, like you're like, oh, it's a low budget horror movie. I was like, oh, actually, it's pretty atmospheric. I really fair play.
Necromentia is basically an unofficial Hellraiser sequel, and it's better than most of them.
No.
And it's where the Suicide song, suicide, from the Whether They Go to Die review comes from, and that's a crossover with Andrew Campbell from Gorehounds. Which you can find on YouTube. Not a very famous YouTuber, but does some really, really, really good in-depth Hellraiser reviews.
Seems like a nice enough guy.
Yeah.
I mean, through YouTube, I've not actually met him yet.
So we're doing that.
We're also meeting the Channel Awesome panel. There's only going to be the 3 of us. See, last year was only the 3 of us, but we, co-opted Sophie Liv from Agony. We were like, you're close enough. You just be in the panel.
I could, if he's around, I could ask Andrew to come up because he's a YouTuber.
We'll deputize you into Channel Awesome. Just nobody tell Mike Michaud. But no, well, because they have Welshie on there as going, but he's not sure why, because he never gave them any inclination that
Film Brain, apparently, he was like, do you know why? He was asking me why Welshie was included, and he has no idea, and I don't know. There was some sort of miscommunication.
I know Jill Barrett used to go, but then now she and her husband have the baby, and then they just moved back to England, so I don't know if we're going to see her for another few years.
Yeah, she had Sprogs.
Yep, but only the one, though. Well, no, because her family's from Belfast. So last time she was visiting Belfast, she came to Derry, and we were like, hey, what's up? So maybe next time she'll bring the wee one.
That'd be cool.
And we could be like, oh, baby, we must buy you toys.
You could have convinced your friend who lives in Coventry to go.
Bridget?
Yeah.
Well, she has, a life.
Yeah, you'd be like, I'm not gonna be too far from you. Come down for the afternoon.
Yeah, but I think they're gonna be in Switzerland.
Oh, okay.
Alright, I should explain. When I worked at my second Barnes & Noble, one of my managers, she's a writer, and we got to be pretty friendly. Then she left the company to go work somewhere else. But her husband worked for the government, a government contractor, and he was he's been stationed in Coventry, in the Midlands. Is Coventry
those
in the
poor dears, Coventry.
Well, it seems like a nice enough middle class area. But anyway, so she's got 2 little ones. She's got Tegan, who I think is 4 or 5 now, and Declan, who I think is about 2.5, maybe 2 or 3.
I have still not forgiven Coventry for taking Leeds United's captain, Gary McAllister, in the mid-90s.
Oh, for Christ's sake. But she's like an actual adult. And so what her and her husband have been doing is, when they get, bank holidays and school holidays and stuff like that, they've been taking their kids to countries in Western Europe because they're like, they have this opportunity in their youth to, experience all this stuff. They've been to Euro Disney, they've been to Germany, they've been to Switzerland. I know they went back to the States for a while. They did the Wild Atlantic Way up in Northern Ireland, but unfortunately that was the weekend that I was back in America. Because she was like, oh, so we're going to be coming out to the Causeway, but we want to stop and, for a few hours in Derry if you want to get together. I'm like, I'm going to America that week. But no, she's like an actual mom, with a job and a life and stuff, so we can't be, you need to come to this anime convention. Or I suppose if, we wanted to meet up for 20 minutes at the Coventry train station, but,
Or the Leicester train station.
I'm kidding.
She could have seen the Lord Richard III Museum.
I'm sure they've been already, but anyway, that's not the point. AlCon. But yeah, no, it was a great time last year. the really cool thing was it's a kind of small con, so there was a little core group of people who were like, OMG, it's Diamond Hagen, we are so the biggest fans of you. And then we were like, that's great. You could just hang out with us the whole entire con. Really? We can? Yeah, sure. What the hell else are we doing? Okay. And like the one guy's like, I'll show you the toy shop. And then,
Oh, yes.
you know, like people were like, oh, we see that you're going to Subway. Do you mind people coming with you? No, come on. We're just Subway. So I think that a lot of times, like, you know, at big conventions and stuff, people will be like, OMG, it is the Nostalgia Critic and or Linkara. And feel weird, but like it's at smaller cons, I really like how people are just like, I'm your fan, let's hang out. And we're like, alright.
Yeah, especially if you don't know a lot of people there yet, you know. The lot more often you go to a convention, the more you get to know regulars who go to the con. Like, I didn't go to BroCon this year, but I've made enough sort of, you know, friends with people who go to BroCon that, you know, there's people I recognize when I go and I'm like, I can hang out with them.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Oh, another person who goes to AlCon is Petya.
Yeah.
2 Mile Tower, who used to do the Critic Core reviews. She also does some stuff with Film Brain. I think that's sort of post-production type stuff.
Mm.
She's awesome. And she is apparently doing a Mass Effect cosplay this year.
Yeah, she was saying, I'm gonna cosplay, but I'm gonna you know, just cheat and just recycle my Steven Universe cosplay from Con Bravo.
I think I might bring my Colonel Chestbridge stuff.
I think you should. That would be the weirdest fanfic ever. I remember, kill Jasper. That's a Steven Universe joke. You don't get it.
I don't get it.
Because I wanted you to watch Steven Universe. Like, I'll watch the 2 episodes you show me and never think of it
3.
again.
You showed 3.
Right? But here's the thing, though. Like, the episodes are only 11 minutes long, so you could... Because you always marathon shows while you edit. You could literally 2 nights and you'd watch the whole thing. And I have all of them digitally. I could give you, like, every single one.
Well, I got a big list of shows to go through. Like, while I'm editing, I'm still working on Pirates of the Great Salt Lake, and I got 1 episode left of Zoo to watch, and next thing I'm gonna watch is Stranger Things. Stranger Things.
Yeah, people are saying good things about it, but I don't have the time. Maybe when school starts again.
You know, I got a big list of shows to go through. Plus, I have ones that I watch every year when they come out. You know, like The Strain or Game of Thrones or Walking Dead or American Horror Story.
I'm just saying.
But I was gonna say something really important. And yes. Well, how many episodes of Danger 5 have you watched?
The ones you showed me?
I think I showed you 1 episode.
You showed me more than that.
Did I?
Yeah, you showed me one from the first season, and there was like, oh, this is in the different season, but this and this and this happened. And I'm like, alright.
Okay.
So you've showed me several.
Okay, so you win then.
I just like nonfiction TV. I like to watch documentaries on nature shows and things like that.
But let's discuss.
Oh yeah, there's controversies, all sorts of hella controversy going down. Although it's not as controversial as it was last weekend, but we had issues recording last weekend, so.
Yeah, the latest one being the possibility, that...
I think it's been confirmed, is it not?
I don't think so. That Zendaya is playing Mary Jane Watson.
Yeah, I had no idea who this person was until we watched the Movie Bob video about it.
I think she does stuff on the Disney Channel and things like that.
Why.
But yeah, I got the feeling it's not been confirmed, but it's sort of like it's confirmed because if it wasn't the case, then Disney would probably say that no, she's playing this part. So the fact that they're not saying anything kind of indicates that she probably is.
Mm-hmm.
But some people are really, really angry about this. I mean, like 40 or 50 years after you had a black Catwoman and a Latino Joker in the Batman original series, people are still upset about traditionally white characters being played by non-white people. It's like, get over it. It happens.
Like, I don't think, unless it was the actual point, like, if you had an African-American character whose point was like, oh, I don't know, there was some immortal whose father was a slave or something like that, and that was, like, critical to their character, or someone who was, like, Latino or something like that, and that was critical to their character, and that's fair play.
DC's character, AlCon, someone decided to use this as a counterpoint to show off about stuff with comparing him with Superman. Mm-hmm. And part of his character is that he was an alien. His story mirrored Superman's, mm-hmm. but he was raised as by slaves in the 1850s. And, you know, he was black. Mm-hmm. And so, but he's immortal, so he's really long-lived.
Yeah.
And that's sort of in his backstory. So that sort of character kind of needs to have that race. And the Movie Bob video brought up a really great point about how you could have a black Batman, but it'd be really distracting because Batman's meant to be from old American money, and very few black families have that sort of situation. So it would be.
I could see it happening, and I'll tell you exactly how you would do it. That he had an ancestor who was either, well, actually, it'd be better. It was not even a freed slave, an escaped slave, who came north and maybe was like had a real talent, like a silversmith or something like that, and was hired by a prominent New England abolitionist, because a lot of the New England abolitionists were Quaker, or like the really like softball Christian who were like, oh, everything actually really is grand, and everyone should be treated equal and stuff like that. And then, like, said, well, you're really great at this, I want to help you with, with your business, and he becomes business partners with the guy's son or something like that, and he becomes quite wealthy and stuff like that. And when the abolitionist dies, he leaves everything to him and the son and stuff like that. And so that guy, when he dies, leaves it to his family. So his family could have been American old money, just African American old, but there are such families.
Oh yeah, they do exist.
Like, I'm not saying that, oh, well, that's rare because, money goes down racial lines, but white people do to make it really hard for African Americans to be successful and to gain that kind of wealth. So that's totally something that happens. So, because then that makes Batman's quote unquote like ability of his super ability is just being rich. And I was talking to a coworker of mine. I was like, that's not true, because he trains, he trained with the Shaolin monks, and he has all these physical, capabilities. If he was talentless, he wouldn't have been able to do that. So maybe
his other superpower is basically being every white protagonist in a movie about a bunch of non-white people who need to be saved by the white person. Right. As they goes in and beats them at their own game.
But here's the thing, though. Because that could be like a kind of thing where, like, every time he thinks to himself, I can't do it, I want to fail, I'd be like, no. You know why? Because I come from a family that, succeeded against all odds. The odds were stacked against them. I'm fighting Superman, for Christ's sake. The odds are stacked against me, but you know what? My father, my great-great-grandfather was a slave who escaped or who was freed, and he didn't give up. And so that would be so that's how you could make Batman black.
See, I'm perfectly fine with the idea.
That's what I'm going to call this episode, How to Make Batman Black. We're going to get all the ad revenue, everybody clicking to see what the fuck I'm talking about.
I think that...
If you agree or disagree, by the way, comment below.
I think it's a perfectly fine idea, but as Movie Bob put it, it would make his ancestors far more interesting than Batman, because they managed to do all that, and so that's why it's, even though it could work, you could logically do it like you've done.
And you could
make him less interesting than his ancestors.
You could have Alfred be black too, but kind of always like kind of, for a while, Bill Cosby went really crazy. I mean, not the rape and everything, but like regular crazy, and started yelling at the black community and be like, you're just doing it wrong. And everyone was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, Alfred could always, every time, Bruce is being kind of a shit, or, we're like, we'll just rely on money. He's like, no, Master Wayne, because here are things and stuff. This is where your family came from. And, maybe he, like, not even, like, I don't know.
But, it's...
Hopefully you'd still have a British accent, though.
Perfectly fine with
reasons.
Perfectly fine with Black Batman. It's just, the ancestry you described is a far more interesting story than just a rich fascist who gets to beat up poor, uneducated, and mentally ill people.
That's true. But no, I mean, if you think that's a cool idea,
if you're gonna
write a webcomic about Batman's black ancestry.
If you're gonna have an iconic DC character who's suddenly made black and have it make sense in the universe, it really should be Superman.
Well, yeah, I can see that, because he's not even human anyway.
Because he's powered by the sun.
Kryptonian. He
gets his power from the sun. So, he should have a skin type which allows him to absorb, to get more of the thing. So, melanin in his skin.
That makes sense. Darker colors do absorb heat energy from the sun, and white does repel it. Which is why you should...
Well, Superman's meant to be Moses as well.
What?
The films recently have Superman doing all these sort of Christ things. There's metaphors which are being just stuck in there. But the guys who created him were two Jewish kids, and their idea was actually inspired by Moses, in that he was sent away as a baby.
Oh, and he wandered and
it's not so much wandering. It's that the coming to Earth and stuff. It wasn't meant to be like God sending his only son to save the Earth, like the modern ones interpret him as Christ-like. He was meant to be. He's sent away by his ancestors.
Zod. let my people go.
And it was meant to be more like Moses, found by these other people and raised as an adoptive child. I don't know if their connections with Moses went any more detail than that, but I know originally they were thinking definitely more of Moses than Jesus.
Makes sense.
It is possible that comic books are the most Jewish art form ever created, because the guys who created Superman, Stan Lee, pretty much everyone in the early days of comic books were Jewish.
I wonder why.
And you know, the comic book, like jazz, are pretty much the exclusively American art forms. You know, they were invented in the United States, exclusively in the United States, and then they spread outwards. So it's like, but this one, it's very Jewish. I'm just wondering why that is. It must be some sort of cultural reason, maybe because it grew out of New York City or something like that. Or
It'd be something to look into.
It would be fascinating.
So, maybe someone's written a book about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Mary Jane Watson apparently is a newish character. And again, I have very little, ish, relatively speaking, because Movie Bob
60s.
said, compared to like the Golden Age.
Yeah, but she's almost as old. She's not as old.
Yeah,
as
but if the
Spider-Man,
Golden Age was in the 30s, she's half as old as comics. So I mean, newish as in this wasn't like 1935. This was 1965. You know.
Yeah, that's
relatively speaking, she's a newer character.
Yeah.
Allegedly. Like, I don't have many comic skills.
Character, I think.
If we make mistakes, correct us, because I'm not a comic book nerd, so I will.
But I'm perfectly fine with her being played by a black person. Like,
I don't see
Black Panther needs to be black.
I guess that's the point.
I
mean,
because
he's an African from Africa. That's usually how that works.
Yeah, there are very few characters which explicitly need to be a race. So when it comes to arguing about whether it's right to change the race or not for a feature film thing, you look at the actors, but also you look at the fact that white people, and white men especially, are overnumbered when it comes to comic books, mainly because these characters were created from the 30s to the 60s. Very few into the 80s and 90s that stayed popular and became big enough. Deadpool's an example of somebody who did that. And Wolverine was created in the 70s, I think in the early 70s. And so
I wonder why new things aren't as enduring.
Because very few things endure. Just whenever you create a bunch of stuff in a particular era, very few will survive, and the ones that survive a long time, will likely survive the next era.
That's a good point.
So that means that the majority of big characters in superhero things just tend to be white males. So it means that you got...
Excuse me, or trees and raccoons. No, I'm just kidding.
Although Groot's actually an older character than a lot of them than Spider-Man and all.
I know, I was just making fun.
But that's why it's... When it comes to changing race of characters, I do not view changing white characters to non-white or non-white to white as similar, because it's a numbers thing.
I think it's a lot more of an American thing too, because see, when you have a heterogeneous society, you get a lot less of that. Like when they cast a black actress as grown-up Hermione, and people lost their shit about it, and J.K. Rowling was like, I never said Hermione was white per se. I just said she was smart and had frizzy hair. And the fact that, she as the creator of the character just had her down as British. And the fact that, just like you have black Americans, you have black British folks, you have Indian descent British folks. But I think it's interesting is that you guys don't make a deal of that. Like, I've never heard anyone described as, like, Indian English or Indian British or British Indian or something like that.
I've got a feeling you'd probably have to ask someone who's not as cripplingly white as I am about that situation, because I'd hate to make some sort of pronouncement.
Like in the news or something like that. So a person would be described as African American. I have never heard a British person of color being described as, like, black or African English or something, African British.
At times, occasionally people have tried to bring that sort of idea in, but part of the UK thing is not so much where your ancestry comes from, it's the fact that you're British.
Yeah.
So it's in Europe itself, that's why its nationalism is different from other countries, from America's. Like, we find the idea of talking about where your ancestors come from to be a bit weird, generally. It's just like,
unless it's your dad who's like, well, our ancestors were on the Welsh border, probably sheep thieves, and then went to become English for a while, and then were Welsh, and then went to Scotland.
Well, that's just that my dad being all
my
historic.
father-in-law does not actually sound exactly like that, but close.
But yeah, when it comes to these fictional characters, if you've got 10 characters, 8 of them are white.
Yeah, wasn't there like some? They were I think it was a sports star or like a comedian or an actor who was being interviewed on an American television show, and they said
referred to as African American.
And they were like, but I'm an American.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
And because over in the UK, generally, at least most of the time, the usual term is black. But
See, I always thought that was.
There was a character in the Hunger Games, and I do not know which character because I've not seen the Hunger Games, who was written as black in the novels, and in the book, in the film, was written as black in the novels, and everyone assumed she was white, and then she was cast as a black woman, and they lost their minds over that because everyone had assumed she was white.
Well, what did Suzanne Collins have to say? She's the author.
She was like, she's written as black. Get over it. But people lose their minds over a lot of things.
Well, I don't
Sometimes people just don't read the book.
The problem is, like, in America, we're like, oh, everything is pandering to quote-unquote minorities. But I think...
The only people who say that are really upset that they're not being pandered to at the moment.
I'm pretty sure that there was a news story a few years back, and I want to say 4 or 5 years back, and somebody fact-checked me and let me know if this is right or wrong, that said that if you took all of the people of color in America together, white Americans are no longer the majority. They're actually the minority. And
yeah, but that includes everything else being put together.
Yeah, but
that's really
the thing.
fair.
Well, that means it's not really fair, but...
White people are still the largest group.
Yeah, but if you what I'm saying is that, like, that could easily change. Like, if for some reason there was a good reason for people to delay having children or have less children, like an economic thing, and then you had another ethnic group that did not do that, that had more children or had children at the same rate, in several generations that could be true. I mean, isn't that like one of the basis of Firefly? Is that basically humans, when they left Earth, so interbred that really you only had like 3 ethnic groups anymore, and that's why most people spoke English and Chinese, because they're so like people forget how many people live in China.
Oh yeah,
like billions and billions of people. I'm like, and when it was explained to me, like, yeah, that's why there's all this Chinese slang in Firefly. It's because really the 2 languages that survived for some reason were English and Chinese. Because how could the majority, how could this significant percentage of the surviving humans, speak Chinese and it not persist? And I was like, that's a good idea.
But when it comes to the representation,
you're like, I just don't care what
I was going back to the original subject.
I don't care what you said. I'm just.
I'm trying to illustrate this. We got 10 characters. 8 of them are white. 2 of them are not white. So you got Latino, black, whatever. And then it is not a similar level of cultural crime of some sort to have one of the white characters be made into a non-white part than if you get rid of one of the non-white ones and make them white. These are not applicable.
And here's the thing that
because of context.
I don't understand either is because, don't take me wrong, but in comics, like, everything changes every 5 seconds. They're like, oh no, Thor is a woman now. Yeah, but he was a frog 3 months ago. Or like, oh no, Superman is dead. No, he's not. Oh no, Captain America worked Hydra. No, it was just a dream.
Captain America was a werewolf.
Yeah, like, literally, things change every 5 minutes in comics, and why...
occasionally characters do change races, too. For instance,
or ages, or genders, or everything else.
There was a one-issue thing back in the 60s, I think, when Lois Lane had to do an undercover thing about what it was like to be black, and so she went through this machine that made her black for the issue. I'm not fucking kidding.
It sounds like it'd be really problematic, but I can actually see what they were trying to do.
I could see what they were...
If you did that now, people would lose their mind. Well, and I guess rightly so, because it is kind of like a skewed viewpoint.
The other one is not just one issue. The Punisher had I can't remember if everyone thought he was dead or he had to fake his death or whatever, and he got some sort of surgery that made him into a black guy, and then he got a job, I believe, teaching in an inner city school.
Oh my god, that's so bad.
But yeah, the Punisher was black for a while. He was also Frankenstein for a while. Frankenstein's monster.
And here's the thing, sometimes characters just are a race. Like, I wrote a short story many, many years ago, over a decade ago now.
Yeah, some of them, it's intrinsically connected. I'm agreeing.
Okay. And this is I always played around with the idea of writing superhero novels, like books where the characters are superheroes. I actually do have a fairly fleshed out world universe that I've been, and then I go back and forth about whether I'm ever going to write these books. But I had a character, and I wrote him, and it was just a short story. It was something that was drunk, and I wrote late one night, and it's actually the whole story is a metaphor about being a writer. But then I also realized that by the time I read it back to myself, I hadn't realized it, but I I envisioned the main character and his friend as African American, and I was like, that's weird, but because I'm white, so you would think that all the characters that I write would be white unless I was writing about people from another country. But I was like, it just perfectly fits. Like I can see these two people, and it just is natural to me. Oh, they're African American, and then I was like, will I get in trouble for that? Because they always tell you.
You don't do it terribly.
Well, no, I mean, okay. Again, this was a short story that I wrote literally over a decade ago, and the friend was just kind of like around telling the main character about his sister's wedding, and that the main character was invited to be an usher.
Ushers.
Well, that's like kind of like the bridesmaids for the men, but like they were just like two normal guys and stuff like that. But then like you always worry like I worry sometimes about writing characters, and sometimes someone might say, but you're not a man, you can't write what a man thinks, or how dare you write a transgender person, you're not transgender, you don't know things and stuff, and then like I worry about that.
Are the people who say that familiar with the concept of writing?
I don't know, but then like some people would say that like you should never try, because you'd be marginalizing someone else's voice by writing a character that's not your way. But then like isn't that in and of itself racist to say like I should never try to write an Asian character?
I think it's it's far better to suggest that it's racist.
But because then you could say like I should never write straight characters, but I have in the past.
I think it's far better to put it this way. The main problem with that argument as you're presenting it is that would mean that every single thing you write would have to basically be a white supremacist wet dream, because only full of white people, and that's even worse.
Yeah, especially if you're writing fantasy or if you're writing science fiction.
So how about, the logical and smart thing to do is, if you know people, try to find someone who you're friends with who is in the group that you're writing, and let them read it, and, basically take their view very, very seriously.
Yeah, but here's the thing though, in fantasy, like you really can't do that. Like, okay, I, in this novel that I have half done, in this country, there's two kind of racial groups, and there was one group that came from this country over the mountains and kind of like settled in this one area, and they're darker skinned, not like African, like kind of like almost Dravidic, like Indian Dravidic, and they intermarried with the people from the Delta, who kind of pretty Aryan almost.
Aryan by what definition?
Aryan by very, very blonde hair, very fair skin.
Okay, that's the
inaccurate. European Aryan, not Indian Aryan, because I do know the okay, as people
Nordic.
Nordic, that would be a good way. And so basically, kind of, you would have people who would be anywhere from the Delta people who are just very, very, it's like, oh, you're from the Delta, aren't you? Oh, I guess I am. To people who are more like Mediterranean almost. And then I was like, would that be... See, would I need to get an ethnic consultation on that? Because I'm not portraying an actual ethnic group, just natural human variants of skin color by genetics.
It wouldn't hurt just to see if you've accidentally used any sort of tropes that aren't good, or anything like that. The sort of thing that you might not notice that you've done. Occasionally writers write things into their work that they don't notice.
Well, the only thing that I had to change is that there was one of the guards who survived the plague. His name was Finn. Finn.
Mm-hmm.
And the main character describes him as being descended from a really good family of lots of knights and stuff like that, and he was quite dark skinned. And then your man Finn from Force Awakens. I'm like, oh damn it, I have to change his name.
It's probably smart to have to at least have one person who can take a look at it and suggest notes and all, who's very far removed from your own experience, just so you can have a variety of views on it.
The fact that I have a ranging variance of skin color in this thing, are you offended? You need to let me know if you're offended by the show.
Only a fucking idiot would be offended by that fact.
Well, I mean, people get really upset, I think it was some there was supposed to be some video game coming out. I don't know if it ever got published. It's supposed to be like a super realistic medieval experience. But then I can't remember the controversy if it was there weren't enough people of color for the country that it should have been, or there were not people of color and there wasn't supposed to be. It was very confusing. And then everyone becomes, a goddamn doctorate in medieval studies when you try to talk about what races should be where in Europe. Everyone was like, well, in as much as I have a doctorate, no, I actually don't. Let me just tell you what I think about history. And I don't know. It's just weird. Because we know that there were people of color in the British Isles.
Mm-hmm.
And what was their band called?
What?
The folks from Dublin.
Oh, the Blue Men of Dublin.
The Vikings.
Sorry about the clicking here. Basically,
She's on her smartphone. She's checking social media.
I have to make sure I've got the right thing for this. Because Sophie Okonedo, who played Liz 10 in Season 5 of New Who, in the Beast Below, she is appearing in, I think it's either a film or a television or a stage production where she's playing a medieval queen. I gotta make sure I know which medieval queen it is, because this is important. So I'm looking up herself. Hurry up, IMDb. Let's talk. You talk.
Once Upon a Time, things and stuff.
Margaret in the Hollow Crown, okay? I think it's Margaret of Anjou. And there was a UKIP person who was really upset about this. They tweeted out a picture of her being like, this black woman is playing a French, white, medieval woman. This is absolutely terrible. It's horrible.
Is this the one where, like...
It's awful. But then, and they had a picture from a medieval thing showing this person.
Mm-hmm.
And a historian reacted, and the quote was, I'm paraphrasing, but the quote was pretty much, it's a wonderful picture of her, and I'm glad that you're against historical inaccuracy, but are you aware that the picture you're showing is depicting her as being descended from a swan?
Was this more of those swans are actually fish kind of thing?
No, the picture of that they had used to represent this woman was showing that she was descended from a guy who had magically been turned from a swan into a human.
That sounds very Greek myth.
So, apparently this was the sort of thing that sometimes people would be like, oh, mysterious ancestry for people in the medieval times, but I just thought it was really funny, and there was a bunch of people afterwards complaining about the historical accuracy of not having any swan people.
Oh no, was it ducks? Were ducks...
Swans were not considered fit. Were not considered meat.
Look this up. Because of a papal thing, there was a period of time where swans were considered fish. Because they were thought to, like, grow off trees and then fall into the water and live the rest of their lives as fish. People also used to think that you could have a recipe for mice. If you put seeds in hay in a dark corner, you would spontaneously generate mice. Because that's how science used to work.
Yep.
But yeah, like, it's very touchy because I feel like no matter what you do, sometimes as a content creator, you're gonna do it wrong. Like, I mean, if you're writing in a fantasy world where you're portraying people of different, all the varieties and human variants of ethnicity, and someone's gonna be like, oh, I'm offended, and you're like, oh, I didn't mean to offend you, and then someone's like, don't apologize, I'm offended that you apologize. You're like, oh, Jesus Christ. And then you leave Twitter.
You know what interesting thing about variety when it comes to comic book characters, which never gets its due in the films?
What?
Non-Christian ones. Explicitly non-Christian.
Yeah, but how many, like, you never see Wolverine at Mass, you know what I mean? Like,
Wolverine, he is sort of like he's just a non-committal deist. But there are several ones who are explicitly non-Christian and it's never mentioned. For instance...
I'm sorry, I just have to say, I never think of superheroes in context of religion.
Well, some of them it's quite important to them. For instance, here's my favorite one. There have been 4 Fantastic Four films.
Mm-hmm.
The Thing is Jewish.
Well...
He's
from New York City, and he's from the Bronx, I assumed he was.
Yeah, but it's never come up in the films. It's never explicitly mentioned. Black Panther is probably going to be the first explicitly non-Christian superhero guy to have a big-budget movie. I mean, Kitty Pryde is in X-Men. She's Jewish. It's never mentioned, never comes up. Colossus is an atheist. But
yeah, but here's the thing, though. It's like, how do you... besides saying, oh, you are Jewish, aren't you? Why, yes, I am. Like, or they'd be like, oh, I would help you save the world, Professor X, but I have to go to temple.
Like, Or,
like, gather round, X-Men, we're going to light the menorah tonight in the X-Mansion. Like, it just... Like,
You can do little visual cues.
Yeah, but see, that's why I don't think religion. It's just a weird construct to me to have side by side with superheroes.
It's part of the characters that makes them so rich and interesting. Like, the only character in a big superhero film that I can remember who was explicitly stated as having a particular religion was Captain America. In the Avengers, he was explicitly Christian.
Okay.
The other ones,
recall that,
you can take that as read. There's actually a website, and it's wonderful, and it's about superhero characters and their religious beliefs, and what evidence they have.
Ha! We know what religion Thor is, because he's half god. Or godling, or whatever he is.
But,
I worship me! Yes, Thor, we know.
Like, my view on, like, for instance, Batman. Batman is...
He'd probably be a wasp, wouldn't he?
Well, he...
Raised wasp, anyway.
Yeah, like, my view, Batman's probably a mesotheist, which is believes in God, hates him. Will probably want
But see, it's so difficult.
Just imagine Batman dying and wanting some serious answers from God and wanting to punch him in the face.
But the thing about, like, comic book universes is that you have things like Thanatos and Galactus and all this kind of stuff, and, like, you know, like... How can you say to Black Widow, what religion are you? She's like...
Well, she's atheist.
Well, but yeah, but I just picked... She was the first character.
She's Russian.
Yeah, but this is the first character I can think of.
Because a lot of... Nowadays, the Russians are pretty religious,
but... you always do that. You, like, I'm making a point, you snipe at a semantic, and then I can't make my big point.
I'll shut up.
Okay, asking one of the X-Men, what religion are you? Like, we exist in the same universe as literal gods and things that devour galaxies. I mean...
Your definition of God just changes a bit.
Don't take me wrong, but, like, it's kind of hard to hold perspective at that point.
Well, your definition of religion of God will change.
I mean, like, you know, if people know, oh, Thor is an Avenger, Thor is the god of lightning, you know, this is common knowledge in the MCU. But
at the same time...
You can see a lot of people, you know, being like, Mom, I don't want to go to church. Why? Well, I don't believe in God. We've never seen him. We saw Thor on TV with the Avengers saving New York City. I think I believe in Thor. You know what I mean?
In the Ultimate series, which was launched about 15 years ago, the idea
if you believe in Thor, write the show.
Was to relaunch the Marvel Comics characters in a parallel universe with no backstory, just relaunch them from the beginning, and then as they were created then with new versions, so people could just jump on. And it was a clever idea. Went to hell very quickly because comics.
Yeah.
But one of the things that happened when Thor was introduced, if I remember correctly, there was a cult developed around worshipping Thor.
Oh, that probably made him. Oh, wow.
But
look, he's like, I want a cult.
In the Marvel Universe, you also have the Greek gods running around called Hercules as a main character. In a parallel universe, he's actually the gay lover of Wolverine.
Lol.
I can't remember which universe that is though, but because DC had its main universe, Marvel had a lot of universes.
There's a Kevin Sorbo joke in there somewhere. I just can't find it.
But there are. If you go to the website, I can't remember the name of it, but look up religious affiliations of superheroes. You can look through for their evidence, and it's fascinating because they take little pieces of evidence, just from background to the character, things they've said, sort of stuff they've worn, to piece it together. Sometimes it's explicit. We know like Ben Grimm is Jewish, possibly because he's at least partially based on Jack Kirby, who drew him for the first time, I think. But there's other ones which you have less. We know less well, like Cyclops. Probably Protestant, they're not 100% sure. But it's absolutely fascinating. And that's the sort of thing that should really be picked up on, because religion, it does add spice to people's personality, whatever it is.
Maybe it's I can't see beyond my own theory of mind, but I just have a hard time with the idea of like, oh, I can do magic that can, change reality. Or, I'm an X-Man, or, I went to space in cosmic rays and I've seen the big bad guys. I've seen these horrible things. Oh, I better go to church. Oh, God, I'll be pissed at me. I think at a certain point, you would just get to a point where you're just like, this is meaningless. And either you would keep doing it because it's at one tenuous link to the habits of who you were as a human before you were a superhero in order to be the kind of thing that would help keep you sane. Or, you would just be going through the motions because that's what people expect of you.
Well, Spain's Protestant. Sorry. She's very, 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 very strict Protestant. And that's really informs your character.
A Unitarian superhero who just loves everybody.
Well, there probably are. But just think about it this way. Thousands of years ago...
Or maybe, if you were if you were a Buddhist and you were really into reincarnation, because that was something that happens like in the MCU or something like that.
Just think, thousands of years ago, you had people like lightning was evidence of the gods were angry at you, thunder, all these things. Okay, we now understand them.
Mm-hmm.
Yet people still believe in God. People's need and wish to believe in the divine, whether it's real or not, is very, very powerful. And if things come to change how you view things, that remains. It evolves.
There are a lot of psychological theories in play, and I really want to get into them, but we are coming up on the end of the show. Maybe I just got a new webcam, so I'm going to do vlogs now, hopefully, if I can get my shit together. And I want to do a lot about psychological theory. So there are a lot of theories about our need for structure, because cognitively, it's very, very difficult to comprehend the unknown and to comprehend chaos. It's kind of like a cognitive failsafe, almost, to save cognition power. The way that I'm not going to get into it now, but Google it, because you can find a lot of great articles and a lot of great scientific studies by people. But
just people's belief in religion. Religion changes, but it's very, very adaptable. It's very, very, evolutionary in that way. And
I know who a lot of women worship. They do worship Thor, or Thor's pecs.
And
Tara worships Captain America.
But the people, they would see all these things, and their definition of God would change. It would evolve. It would just alter, because that's what's happened. It would just happen in a much quicker one than humans beings in the real world had to deal with.
That's true.
Because very few people had lived long enough to discover what lightning was, and what the ability to fly, see that the world wasn't a flat disc. All these sort of things that at one point were taken for granted, but we discovered later on that our view was wrong, and it's just entirely mundane.
Fair play.
So,
if you want a really good thing about this, read The Upright Thinkers. I can't pronounce the author's last name. It's on my shelf. It's all the way over there, but it's a really great book about science and its history.
I think it'd be really cool for one of the Miss Marvel to turn up, Kamala Khan, because she was deliberately designed as a sort of a young teenage girl, Muslim. Mm-hmm. She wears a niqab when she's fighting crime and stuff like that. Wonderful. We need more stuff like that.
Not in France. Although I heard that they lifted that ban because all the other countries were making a lot of noise. They're like, you can be a nun and wear full nunnery on the beach, but you can't wear the bikini burkini thing.
Yeah, that's absolutely insane, because
so some people were cosplaying as Daft Punk on the beach where it's forbidden.
With that thing, it's okay. If people are allowed to wear full body things like wetsuits and stuff, you can wear a fucking bikini. Well,
France has always been, in the past few decades, rather.
If you're allowed to wear a hat, you're allowed to wear a turban. For instance, you have a situation where no one's allowed to have a beard, and then you have a person, a Sikh wants to grow a beard for the thing. Mm-hmm. I'm like, if it is physically safe and safe in complete ways for the Sikh guy to have his beard, mm-hmm. then non-Sikhs are allowed to have a beard.
Yeah. Goes both ways, but
France was being ridiculous.
Well, that's France. They usually are.
Quite often.
But anyways, that's coming up to the end of our time. This has been episode 102. I have been the Omega Geek, and honey, who do you have to have been this week? You must make a choice. You must decide.
That guy on the DVD cover up there.
Oh, it's some random guy.
I think it's Flash Gordon from the 30s. Buster Crabbe.
You could bust her crab. That's what she said. Okay.
According to